to introduce also Ms. Jamie Schaefer. She is our art teacher at LES and is responsible for the submission of the art. I would like to introduce to everybody, big congratulations to Brennan Campbell. He is the winner of the Celebrating Art Contest. It's sponsored by Creative Communications, and it's a company that promotes the arts and it sponsors numerous contests. He had a panel of judges look at the entries that were given. We have the submitted artwork. He was one of 102 LES students that were entered into the contest. So again, I thank Ms. Schaefer for doing that. She really sees outside of the building and shows students that the art is really in the world, and we do appreciate all that she does to take that outside of LES. He was one of 10 students selected as a top 10 winner from across the country in first grade, and he received a savings bond and a free copy of the anthology, which Ms. Schaefer has. We also had, LES had 52 students that actually had their artwork in the anthology. And this year we have 4 students that were included in the fall edition. So Brennan, congratulations. We're very proud of you. Tonight we have Mr. and Mrs. Campbell. Mrs. Campbell is here. There's Mr. Campbell over here. Thank you.
We have a certificate for Brennan.
Educational programs, Dr. Coran.
Last couple of months, I was reporting on the Keystone Opportunities Grant. We're on the process of making pre-application. Unfortunately, I must tell you that usually I don't need a microphone. Okay. Unfortunately, I must tell you that we were not one of the districts invited to make full application. That application request is based on need and capacity, and going through the process, we recognize that in the area of literacy, we have high achievement, high performance, and socioeconomically, we're not as disadvantaged as many of the schools that were applying. So we knew our point systems were not very high in terms of our scoring, so we were not invited. However, in future years, as they look to expand the Keystone opportunities, we will continue to pursue that avenue. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Cranick. Item number 2 in your packet is the proposed calendar for 2012-2013. and that will be an agenda item for next week. The Education and Planning Committee meeting will be held on March the 20th at 5:15 p.m. in the Center for Student Creativity. So the committee members, please mark that. And of course, anyone else who would like to attend is also invited. We welcome Dr. Soltis this evening to give us an update on our drug and alcohol prevention measures that we use within the district. Thank you, Dr. Soltis.
Good evening. I've been asked to present on the prevention programs provided to students in our district in the area of drug and alcohol, or as a friend of mine would typically say, alcohol and other drugs. Very fortuitous is the article that you can find in today's High Post, and it's the center spread on social acceptance of marijuana and decisions that have consequences. Now, in my mind, there are 3 ways to address alcohol and other drugs in a school, and I'm going to use a metaphor of a cliff. Let me describe it this way. We could construct danger signs on a road approaching a cliff. We could build a fence at the edge of the cliff, or we could build a hospital at the bottom of the cliff. And truthfully, we do all 3. We provide a 3-tier approach to addressing the issue of alcohol and other drugs in our schools. The majority of students in our district respond to a primary approach, or the danger signs on the road as we approach the cliff. This involves education about the harmful effects of alcohol and other drugs, and maybe even more importantly, education about how to make good decisions and how to be true to oneself. This approach includes about 82 in-class sessions in our elementary schools per year, 11 to 12 sessions per grade in the junior high school provided by St. Vincent Drug and Alcohol Prevention Project. It includes orientation programs for students at the high school, presentations and health classes across all grade levels. The programs provided by St. Vincent Drug and Alcohol Prevention Project are supported by the Westmoreland County Drug and Alcohol Commission, and as well as district funds. In addition to these formal services, an emphasis is placed on the 40 developmental assets in the schools that assists our community, parents, and students to develop resiliency characteristics. Recognition programs for students who are caught being good, or caught doing something good, or are champions against adversity are also ways that we encourage resiliency. In addition, the county reality tour program is encouraged by elementary schools as a way for parents to open a dialogue with their children, typically around grade 6, about the harmful impact of drug use. Similarly, SAD, or Students Against Destructive Decisions, encourages secondary students to continue to consider the ramifications of their decisions. But some students need more. They need the fence at the edge of the cliff to keep them from going over the cliff. This secondary tier provides a small group sessions for elementary and junior high school students who are thought to be at risk for use. The support groups at the elementary level are referred to as kids, and at the junior high school as teens. Again, these services are funded by the county. Also, the secondary tier is when the student assistance program first comes into play at the junior high school and the senior high schools. The SAP team is available for student self-referral, referral from parents, and referral from teachers. Team members receive a 5-day training presented by the St. Vincent Drug and Alcohol Prevention Project, and the process is highly confidential. Once a student is referred, a monitor is assigned, and evaluation may be conducted by the SAP liaison with parent permission, and referrals may be made for counseling. Still, some students need more. They have climbed over the fence and now need intervention or treatment at the bottom of the cliff. For those students, the SAP team continues to be involved, which may lead to school-based drug and alcohol services in which a drug and alcohol therapist can meet with the student confidentially in the school setting and monitor drug use. Similarly, the SAP team can and does refer students, parents, for other more intense services offered outside of the school setting. In addition, random searches of locker areas by the K-9 unit are measures designed to deter the decision to use drugs in school. I sometimes hear students speak of the use of alcohol and other drugs as a means of coping with the stresses of life. The truth is, alcohol and other drugs mask the feelings of the daily stresses of life. The district's emphasis is placed on prevention for a good reason, teaching students to learn how to reduce these stresses by completing their daily assignments, by keeping up with their homework, by working through peer conflicts, and by working things out at home can and does prevent some drug and alcohol use. I met a student today about this very issue. He figuratively climbed over the cliff and landed on the other side. He now says that he recognizes how his use has interfered with his motivation to do well in school and to work things out at home. He said he's quit and wants to stay in school. We may have caught him at his fall, and we're still going to be there for him. Now in your packets is a handout on the services provided to our students. We do a lot in this area. We probably could do more. Doing more has its costs, both in terms of instructional time and money, but we're interested in hearing what the board wants us to do. Does anybody have questions? Thank you.
I'm going to say something here because I deal with this every day of my life in my profession. When I first came to Latrobe 30-some years ago, it was rare to see an overdose of drugs. In fact, we used to have to call toxicologists to help us deal with it and what to do. Now it's not unusual for us to deal with this on a daily basis, sometimes more than 3 or 4 times a day. This problem exists in our community. It exists every day. We see it every day. As part of medical workups for patients who present with things that we don't think are drug use, we'll do drug screens and find all sorts of chemicals in their system. We find alcohol is pervasive as well. It's a tremendous problem in our community. We are not immune to this. I used to think that heroin only existed in urban decay, but it exists in Latrobe. There are people who have needle tracks on their arm that you check for broken bones or sprained wrists. They come to our department asking for drugs for pain because it hurt their wrist, and when you take their clothes off and look at their arm, they have needle tracks. They ran out of money to buy heroin. They think they can get a prescription for a narcotic that doesn't cost them anything, that might be paid for by medical assistance. So I'm telling you, it's a terrible problem. I don't know what the answer is. I wish I knew. I think the schools being involved is perfect. I think if there's an opportunity to partnership with the healthcare system to do more, it might be something we could consider. In fact, the hospital has asked me to meet with them, since I'm on the school board now, to see if there's any new ways we can partner with the school district to improve things. And I'm going to talk about drug use and those sorts of things. But this is a bad problem in our community. It really is. It exists. It's frightening to me many times how bad it is. I am afraid sometimes when I drive home because I know these people are driving cars. So I applaud our school district for doing these things. It's money well spent to do these things. I don't know what the answer is. I think we need to look at it more and try to figure out where to go. And it's everywhere. It's not any class of people that you might think. It exists throughout the community. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you. One thing I would add is I've worked in other school districts, and this is a district that faces the problem head on. There's no attempt to sweep this problem under a rug to prevent publicity. It's a district that addresses the problem face on.
Thank you, Dr. Soltis. Move to finance with Mrs. Albert.
Thank you. On next week's agenda, we will have the treasurer's report and payment of bills. The budgetary transfers are item number 3 in your packet. And they will be on the agenda next week. There will be, we will be accepting grants, and once again, they're from the McFeely Rogers Foundation. There are 3 of them. $1,575 directed to 3 senior high school scholarships. Remember those people who came to talk to us about the wonderful week they had spent, and the company they had set up, and the people they had worked with, and the great experience they had had? Well, this is McFeely Rogers' answer to that, to provide scholarships. $4,000 to support the elementary school musical instrument initiative and summer music camp for elementary and junior high school students, and $10,000 directed to the Art Conservation Trust Preserve the Vision campaign, which is the second payment of 4. And then there is another grant from the American Legion, District 31, $500 directed to Vietnam class at the senior high school. I guess that's Vietnam history class at the senior high school. So accepting those grants will be on our agenda next week. The Finance Committee met on February 1st, and the next meeting will be on March 7th. And the minutes are in your packet. And please note, one of the items in the minutes discusses increasing the school district's contribution to Asmortal Library. Asmortal Library has hit very hard times with the cuts that have been made to education in the state of Pennsylvania, because the state puts libraries under education. And we currently pay $2 per student to pay for the library services in the whole community. And the Finance Committee is proposing raising that. If we raised it by 25 cents, it would cost the district about $1,050 more per year. And that will be on the budget as it comes out and moves through the budget process. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. The next parts of my report, I'm going to refer to Mr. Watson to explain them to you. And the first is the GASB valuation, item number 05 in your packet.
Thank you, Mrs. Eller. If you reference the report in item number 5 in your packet, it goes through in detail what GASB statement 45 and the purpose of it. I'll just summarize very quickly. Under GASB 45, we're required to have an evaluation performed every 2 years by an outside third party where they look at our other post-employment benefits. It's really an accounting requirement so that we have a dollar figure put on our financial statements that sort of books a liability for our post-employment benefits that we offer to all of our employees. Again, we're required to have this done. We're required to have it done every 2 years. It's that time. We've worked with Willis in the past. We did an RFP for these valuation services 3 years ago. We did it as a county, and Willis came in with the lowest cost at that point in time. We're recommending to continue with them. They're continuing to offer us a 10% discount. They've reduced the price each of the years because of economies, or because of their experience with us and their knowledge of our plans. Does anybody have any questions on that? As I say, item number 5 gives in greater detail in your package. Number 6 is to award a contract for district surveying services, and that's item number 6 in your packet. We recently have been made aware that we don't have an updated, accurate survey of our high school properties. So we had approached the board about doing an RFP for surveying services. We received 4 proposals. Of the 4 proposals received, PVE Scheffler was the lowest proposal that was received. So we're asking the board to approve PVE Scheffler to provide us with those surveying services next week at the February 1st. Item number 7 in your packet deals with telecommunications contracts. Every year under E-rate, we're required to post a 470 application, which invites vendors to provide us pricing for various telecommunication services. This year, the 3 telecommunication contracts that were up are our email hosting service provider, cell phone, and paging services. You'll see in the proposal that we're recommending to award our web hosting. I'm sorry, I said email, web hosting. Am I saying that right? It's web hosting? Web hosting to Schoolwires, which is our existing provider, and to Sprint for our cell phone services, and to USA Mobility for our pagers. We have 20 cell phones currently, and we have 2 pagers. Just so you know, E-rate, by going through the E-rate process, we get 48% reimbursement for our telecommunication services. So that's also on the agenda for approval next week. Mrs. Elder spoke to item number 8. Item number 9 deals with banking services. This is a separate attachment in your packet. It was a yellow form. We were recently notified that our current bank provider was changing all of our accounts over to non-interest bearing accounts effective January 2nd. So we mentioned to the board and the finance committee that we were going to do an RFP for banking services for 6 of our operating funds, to include our general fund, our athletic referee fund, our food service fund, our payroll fund, and our student activities fund. We received 4 proposals, and through doing the analysis, we looked at the interest rates that they're providing us with, the banking service fees that they were or that they were going to be charging us, the banking location, the references of various school districts that they're already dealing with, as well as the service level that they provide. And we're recommending to award those banking services to First National Bank. So we'll ask you to approve that at the upcoming meeting. And then the next item on the agenda is item number 10, and that's to approve a bond issuance of $10 million for various capital projects throughout the district. We have tonight with us Mr. Bob Palmer from Janney, Montgomery, and Scott. Bob, if you wouldn't mind coming to the podium. Bob's going to sort of provide us with the details of the bond issuance and sort of outline for us why it is beneficial for us this time to take advantage of the current.
Thank you very much. Once again, I brought copies along dated today. The good news is nothing has changed from the last time we've had these discussions at the Finance Committee level, meaning that interest rates, if anything, are the same or slightly better. So we have some room from the numbers you've seen and are looking at this evening. For those of you that might not have seen the numbers, I would ask you to turn to page number 1 in the lower right-hand column. And what we again show you this evening is your outstanding debt. And I can't emphasize any more than I will what great shape the district is in as far as their outstanding debt is concerned, how the debt is level, and considering the number of structures you have and the amount of debt outstanding, you're in tremendous shape. You're in such good shape that, as you well know, in contemplating the borrowing of $10 million on page number 2, we are able to structure this in such a way, because interest rates are at historically low levels today, that you can borrow this without any millage increase to the district. And by doing the $10 million, keeping it bank qualified, achieving the lowest possible interest rates, from that amount, the district should realize approximately $9.85 million in available proceeds, plus any interest you earn on that over the time of construction. The last thing I included on an attachment is a graph just to emphasize to you where we are with interest rates. The issue that we're talking about would only go out to about 19, and that would take you to the in between the yellow line and the green line, and you can see there that the yield on the borrowing should come in at under 2%. So, like I said, it's just a great time to borrow. And the last thing that I want to also emphasize with you is that with interest rates so low, You do not at this time want to contemplate using any available capital reserve monies would be available to use it for this project. Because now's the time that you need funds to borrow the funds, as strange as that may sound. And wait for a time in the future when, if you have other borrowings and rates are higher at that time, use those funds to reduce that subsequent borrowing. Are there any questions or comments?
Could you comment on how long this extends the debt?
How long it extends the debt? Yes. Very good question. Your debt presently would be extended approximately, I believe it's 2 years. Let me just double check that. You're looking at extending approximately 2 years. And yes, so that would be, again, that's almost unheard of, to be able to borrow $10 million and extend your debt 2 years.
And not have any millage increase. And not have any millage
And have,
increase.
yes, and have no millage increase.
If there are no further questions, I can thank you all again.
Thank you very much.
For presenting that information. The final item under the finance section is a sort of a separate part of the bond issuance resolution, and it deals with making a recommendation to our school authority. As you are all aware, we do have a school authority, and the board would need to recommend this issuance to them for their approval. So as long as we get the approval from this board, we will invite them to be present next week so that they can also act on the bond issuance.
And I might comment here that the district is planning to use the dollars on a four-pronged approach, as we might call it, dealing with the arts, the academics, and the athletics, as well as other identified projects. And we're going to have another presentation this evening under property and supply, which hopefully will outline in greater detail what some of those other projects are. So it's maybe a little premature to say that right now, but I'm sure some people might be wondering what the bond issuance is for. So maybe after the presentation, we can provide a little bit more detail. Thank you.
That is the end of my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Alder. We'll move to property and supply with Mrs. Kozar.
In item number 8, you'll see the minutes of our property and supply. Our last meeting was February 2nd, and our next meeting is March 1st at 3:30 at the Central Administration Building. You're all welcome. And the third item is on the agenda. We will vote to approve the energy services contract based on the preliminary feasibility study. And Mr. Dan Dow is here this evening from Link to discuss.
Well, good evening. I'll start by telling you we've been in the district for about 45 days, thereabouts. The goal was to look at the way you are consuming energy, electricity, natural gas, and other water, so that we could design a strategy to help you reduce those reductions. So it's a green or carbon neutral strategy to help you be more efficient in your facilities. So we'll talk to you tonight as a whole, share with you a little bit of what our findings are, who Link is, and how you could benefit from a program like this, and the statute that allows you to do it. Just real quick, to really kind of feed off the last discussion about interest rates. They're at historic lows. I've been doing facility funding for schools for almost 20 years. When I started in this business, we were doing projects like we're talking about tonight for about 7.5%. To get it for under 2 is really remarkable. This is a district we worked with here in Pennsylvania, Northwest area school districts. Project hit the headlines in the local community. It was very important to that board to not only highlight almost $5.2 million worth of improvements made in the facilities, but to let their taxpayers know that this was completely done without any increased taxpayer burden, which was pretty remarkable for this district. They hadn't raised taxes in 13 years, and if you looked at their facilities, they were in need of some improvements. So we were able to provide them some significant help. So tonight I'll tell you how we do that, what the legislation is that allows you to do that. Talk a little bit about link service. That's just to give you some credibility as who I am and how I present these types of projects. Talk about what the capital generation project is, how we do that. Some facility improvements we're looking at now is a preliminary discussion. At the end of this process, you'll select what those improvements will be. And then we'll talk about a timeline where you go from here. Real quick, ABM Facility Services at the top, that is our parent company that owns us. Underneath that are several divisions. All of those divisions are in place to help clients like yourself reduce operating costs. We tag ourselves as facility experts. We operate or maintain about 3 billion square feet facilities across the globe. We're a Fortune 500 company, so we have, as our tagline says, that we help clients renovate, operate, and maintain facilities. So here's what those programs do. They're really meant to create financial solutions. For most districts, they don't have any way to raise capital funding other than taxpayer burden. That's why it was so important to Northwest to do it outside those parameters. I'll share with you again a little bit more how we do that. And it's all done around the need to create funding for infrastructure improvements and upgrades. The taxpayer burden is, I kind of handle the East Coast, and the challenges facing education and funding for facility needs has really just never been greater. So what I hear here in Pennsylvania is that going to Virginia, and it's a common theme. Revenues are down, and it's very, very difficult to keep facilities operating efficiently. So let's talk a little bit, the last tag there, PA Act 39. That's the legislation that allows you to do what we talked about tonight. Why it was created several years ago, almost 15 years ago now, the state saw that the availability of capital was decreasing in school districts, not only at the school level, but in between for cities, municipalities, counties, and also state government. So the state, at their level, for colleges especially, has done a lot of PA Act 39 type projects. They saw, because there was no capital, a very steep increase in deferred maintenance. So facilities were not getting repaired because of the lack of capital, and they had to create a way to overcome that, which is why Act 39 was allowed. We see it as a funding mechanism. What it does is it takes operating costs, we drive costs out of your budget, as I'll show in just a second. That delta between what you're currently operating at and what you will operate in the future, those savings gets reallocated to service payment or debt. So it's utilizing the power of your existing budget to the greatest extent possible to fund facility needs versus new or increased taxpayer burden. Typical term for a program like this is 15 years. I think actually again you're looking at something far shorter. So the interest penalty on this program is going to be significantly reduced, so that's pretty neat. And the savings, as I'll talk to you in just a minute, by statute have to be guaranteed. So if Link were to come in and help this district with this program, and the annual savings were to be in the neighborhood of $100,000, for example, if the savings were $80,000, we would have to make up the difference. So we have to write you a check annually for any shortfall. So the difference between guaranteed savings and achieved savings, if there's shortfall, we have to make you whole. If the savings exceed the guarantee, those increased savings are yours to keep. And again, that is by statute. So here's the way it works in a nutshell. This pie graph here is, it's an ASHRAE chart for owning and operating costs, this is what they suggest. It's the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers. These are the cost centers associated with owning and operating the building. I really think there's a couple more in there. I think that pie's a little short. That is certainly a part of that, and a lot of what Link is doing these days is restructuring clients' debt as a way to help fund these programs. And the second, or the other one that should be up there is IT, because in school districts, that IT that's constantly churning HVAC equipment, which is the business we're in, has the last 15 or 20 years. So we're back to see 15 or 20 years from now, but the IT, it's an ever-increasing demand on your capital. So all those pieces of the pie, the better we are together at reducing each one of those pieces of the pie, creates a funding stream to fund the improvements that we're talking about here. So here's, at a very high level, some of the things we're seeing as potential. Again, at the end of this process, and Dan and I will share with you the process moving forward. You will select the things that you ultimately do that make the most sense based on your needs. These are the things from a high level we're seeing already that are potential areas for you to improve through this program. You know, the bottom areas are very focused on energy, probably even some renewable energy opportunities here through solar. So again, staying green, very popular in schools today to reduce your carbon footprint and increase energy efficiency. So your operating costs are actually pretty good, but if you look at your energy intensity, the fact that you're paying pretty cheap energy is helping you, but you are pretty intensive in your facility, so you are consuming a lot of energy. So these are the things kind of at a high level we see as potential opportunities. And then if the board so chooses tonight, here's where we find ourselves in the process. You're at the second bullet here. Here's what the process would be moving forward. You would authorize the advertisement for an RFP. So it is a competitive process. You have a number of firms come in. Typically, they'll be anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 that may come and try to provide a proposal to you. Again, this meets your expectations tonight. March 1st, you will actually put the advertisement on the street. Responses right now are suggested to be due back April 10th. And if you follow that timeline, what we're really attempting to do is be ready for construction this summer. So we can get all this done before the kids are back next year. The other thing to keep in mind on this, you are not contractually obligated to do anything. You have no expense associated with this program until you get to the June 12th date on here, which is actually a contract to begin construction. Everything that Link will do at this point forward, I really characterize it as it's us earning the opportunity to get your business. So we have to do that completely at risk and continue to drive value and make a strong business proposition to you here so that when it comes time to do business or make improvements in your building, we've met expectations. So that's just to make that clear. That is also by statute. You can be under no contractual obligation to do anything or any cost until you decide to implement the project. So I went through that pretty quick, but hopefully that hit the highlights. You have a great opportunity here to affect change in your buildings, to really significantly change the carbon footprint, which is just, as everybody reads in the paper these days, it's school systems across the country are, it's very high on their list of amongst being very responsible taxpayer dollars. So, any questions on that? Yes.
How do you get paid?
You have to think that this is a design, build, construction process. So you will hire us to design, build, and construct the scope of work you ultimately select. So it's we will probably do some work with we are an HVAC contractor with our own staff. We also have a lighting group, which we may or may not use depending on what seems to be most appropriate here. We try to, as much as we can, buy local materials and use local supply houses and employees so that we keep the money in the community. But you really, the way this works is if this program were $1 million, that's what we designed and priced the solutions, you would pay us $1 million to implement it. And that's also really by statute because you have to hold accountable for the delivery. It's a no-cost change order, or no change order process, which means if I tell you it's $1 million, at the end of that construction process, we come back and cannot charge you for any increased scope. Meaning if, let's say for example, we replace a boiler and we can't get the boiler in the door, so we have to expand the door to get the boiler in, you aren't charged for increasing the size of that door to get the boiler in. That's a design error, it's a mistake on our part as a contractor. We can't get back to the charge for that change. So once the budget's set, once we're under contract, it is a firm fixed price. Yes, sir.
Does Act 39 have anything to do with funding, or is it just a statute that tells you that you can't charge any order? This has to be guaranteed.
Well, the technical response to that is, once we guarantee the savings and the savings back to debt, if there's a change order in that process, there's nowhere to go get the money, right? Because you borrowed $1 million. If construction goes to $1.2 million, there's nowhere to get that extra $200,000. So by default, it has to be a firm fixed price, because the funding and the borrowing has been set. Anything else?
Okay, and I know that Ken can probably speak to this, but they are truly been in and out of our buildings quite a bit over the last several months and are doing a thorough review. So we believe we will have learned through this process. So thank you, Dan.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kozar. We'll move to student activities and recreation, Dr. Laughlin.
Just an informational item, the ice hockey senior night will be March 8th, which is a Thursday night at 6:30 at the Nevin Arena.
Thank you. Community relations, Dr. Zorch.
The minutes for the Latrobe Unity Parks and Recreation are in the packet. And unfortunately, Matt Smith will have to resign from the Latrobe Unity Parks and Recreation Board effective at the end of this month. We will need to replace him. And there's a process, I guess. Who's going to explain that? You just going to take letters from the community, or?
I can explain that. Hopefully the Latrobe Bulletin will cooperate with us and ask if anyone is interested for the community to send a letter to the district explaining their interest in serving on the Parks and Recreation Board representing the Greater Latrobe School District. It is a position that Mr. Smith held as he was the athletic director as well as a resident of Unity Township. Unfortunately, he is leaving us, and so that's precipitated the resignation from the board. So if anyone from the community is interested in serving and representing the district, we would ask them to send us a letter. So, Dan, hopefully you can help us with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zorch. Intermediate unit liaison. In your packet, item number 10 is a summary of the meeting held on January 24th, 2012. Straightforward. Item number 2 on the agenda for next week will be authorization to participate in the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit Joint Purchasing Consortium bids for diesel fuel and gasoline for the 2012-2013 school year. We do that whichever year. Item 3, there's a letter from Dr. Luann Matta in your packet. Item number 11, talking about the 2012 election of WIU board members via mail. And you've all gotten these in the mail in the past, and we're asking you to fill in the ballot and send it in. It's a cut and dry thing. And in March, we will vote on the acceptance of the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit budget, and you'll all received a copy of those this evening. Our allocation for next year goes up around $110, I believe. But it's based on our special education costs, so please take a look at the budget, and again, that's for your review, and we will not be voting on that until March. That ends my report on the intermediate unit. We'll move to the EWCTC Joint Operating Committee, Mrs. Kozar.
Yes, the minutes from our previous meeting on January 25th are in your packet. They're item number 12, and I also want to let you know that the EWCTC will have their annual open house on February 16th, which is Thursday, from 6 to 8 p.m. in Allen.
Thank you. Board Policy PSB Liaison, Mrs. Elder.
Yes, the, board policy revisions are continuing. There are a couple that we're looking at for, presentation probably in April to the board. And, at next week's meeting, we're asking you to take a look at, item policy number 011, which is in your packet tonight under item number 13. And it's a reaffirmation of the board governance standards and codes of conduct, which we have adopted in the past, but we're asked to go over them and to reaffirm them. So will you please do that and be ready to vote on that at the meeting next week? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Elder. Transportation, Dr. Moffat.
Thank you. There was a meeting, transportation held on January 25th. There's this meeting in your packet under item 14. Transportation is continuing our study of the 2-bell schedule, and possibly getting some prices from our transportation carrier. This next meeting will be held on February 29th, Senior High School Athletic Office. So, on March. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Moffat. Technology, Mr. Palmer.
Thank you, Ms. Mance. We had our meeting on February 1st, 2012. The meeting minutes of that meeting are item number 15 in your packet, and our next meeting is March 7th, 2012, at 4 o'clock at Central Avenue.
Thank you. Superintendent's recommendations, Mrs. Swider.
Next week, we will be voting on 4 resignations, notably Matt Smith's resignation as assistant principal at senior high school. Just to take note that Matt has been in the district as an employee for 13 years as a teacher, math teacher in the junior high school, the athletic director for several years, and now as the senior high school assistant. He is leaving us to go to a neighboring district, one in which he grew up, and I believe has pulled him home. But we want to recognize, Matt, your service in the district, and thank you for the 13 years, and we're going to miss you. And we appreciate everything you've done. His resignation, as well as 3 others noted there, coaches and a classroom assistant. We may have some substitute teachers. Not sure at this point. We're presently doing interviews, etc. Also some support personnel assignments as listed on the bottom of page 5. And on the top of page 6, we would ask the board to consider offering a non-contractual professional employee retirement incentive. If you notice on item number 16 in your packet, this is the retirement incentive that was offered last year by the district. We ask that you consider offering it again this year and approving it next week to give an opportunity for our employees who might be eligible for the incentive to take some time, consider, and actually submit a letter of retirement if they so desire by April 15th. We offer this on a basis based on what the board wishes, and we believe that this is something that may provide us some budgetary relief, as well as provide an opportunity for some professional teachers to take advantage of a retirement incentive this school year. questions about the retirement incentive, Mr. Watson can certainly go over that. Want to go over it at this point. Michelle, any questions regarding that? And last is simply some meetings that we will be having. Next week is our regular meeting, and just a reminder, as Dr. Laughlin mentioned, about the senator and representatives here next week. And the yearly musical is coming up. It is called The Children of Eden, and we asked if any board members are interested in attending, if you can please get your interest to Mrs. Lager as soon as possible so that we can get those tickets available for you. And also, the public, obviously, tickets, I believe, are on sale if you are interested in attending. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Swire. Any other business to go ahead, Mrs. Elder?
Isn't Breakfast with Champions this Thursday?
You are absolutely correct. It is this Thursday at 7:15, well, 7:15.
7:15, yeah, thereabout.
Thank you. I think it gets more attention because we don't put it on here. That's a good thing.
Well, it's so worthwhile, and I wish more board members would attend it.
And the food is excellent, as Mr. LaCasio mentions every month. The food at the Breakfast of Champions. Thank you, Mrs. Elder. Thank you for reminding me.
Anything else to come before the board this evening?
I just want to say one thing about Mr. Smith's teaching. When he was a junior high teacher, teaching math. I can remember how excited my son was. This was a long time ago, right? How excited he was to come home and talk about his learning experience in that room. And the way he had his class set up, I think it was like, I still remember this. The kids would get a right answer. It was, would they clap for him or do something for him? And they recognized the kids' response. And it made kids more involved and more excited about learning. And they were excited about it. And I always remember that about him. I just wondered how many years ago that was. And I still remember it. It just came to my mind. I was sitting there. I just had to tell you about it. And you made an impact on kids, and you made an impact on the parent, because I remember going to the parent-teacher day when we had a visitation for junior high school and meeting you at that time. Appreciate that, and appreciate your efforts for our school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hansberger. Anything else to come before the board this evening? If not, we are adjourned.